What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be showing you how to get started on Linux. So our primary objective for this video is to try to get as much use out of Linux as we would normally out of Windows as an average user. And with that, it's actually pretty easy, especially using Linux Mint. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so here we are on a fresh installation of Linux Mint. This is running on a USB drive. If you'd like to see how to do that, I will link a video down in the description to be able to do that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and log in. And now this is a fresh install with nothing else that has been done yet. So it's got no drivers or anything installed. This is the fresh out of the box experience and about as bare minimum as it would get. So when you first log in, you get this prompt right here that actually walks you through how to get started on Linux, or at least Linux Mint. So what you want to do is go ahead and uncheck this box because you probably don't want to use it after the first time. So you go ahead and do your first steps. I'm going to go ahead and center this here. I like to choose my color as this nice blue color here and set it to dark. So this is actually something that's not very easy to do on Windows. It's very convoluted and you sure can't do it within the first 10 seconds. I usually keep the modern layout. I am not going to be starting the system snapshots, which lets you do recovery stuff. So you can back up your system. That way, if you have a catastrophic failure, you can easily recoup from it. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to go to our driver manager. And I have an NVIDIA graphics card in my computer, so I need a graphics driver. Now, as the average user who is possibly just putting this on a cheap computer, you might not need this, especially if you're just running an Intel processor and that's it, that has integrated graphics. You're not going to need to go into the driver manager. A way that you could do that is just by opening up the driver manager and seeing if you have any drivers that need to be installed. And as you can see, I have a few different options here. I'm going to go ahead and go with the recommended option here. So this is one of the stable drivers. It is recommended. I am going to go for the 510 because it's one of the latest drivers that's available on Linux, and go ahead and apply. So that is now going to go ahead and download my drivers so I can actually use my graphics card for like games and stuff. Now, if you are just a basic user who wants to just get online, browse Facebook or whatever you do, you can actually do that right out of the box without doing any of this. It comes with Firefox pre-installed, which that is excellent when it comes to privacy, because you have near limitless privacy tweaking options when it comes to Firefox. And there are many, many plugins for privacy and a lot of other features in Firefox that you can download. And now that our driver's installed, it's going to ask you to restart, but you don't have to do that right away because now we are going on to our next step, and that is going to be the updates. The updates are probably one of the best features of Linux Mint in my opinion because they are straightforward and to the point, and in the bottom right corner you get a little shield icon with an orange dot that actually shows you if you have updates available. So unlike Windows that'll do it in the background, this actually waits for you to go ahead and apply it unless you set it to automatically update yourself. And I don't know if you can see this right here, but let's go ahead and lower the brightness here so you can see that. It's asking if you want to do a local mirror. You want to go ahead and hit yes and type your password. And this is just so that you can get your downloads faster. I usually go with advanced hosters, but right now Linux Mint is the fastest, but I've noticed that advanced hosters does get up pretty high quite often. Or usually the Harvard School of Engineering does pretty well too. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And for the base, I'm also going to go ahead and do the same thing. There is going to be the fastest one all the way at the top every single time. You can let it sit for a few minutes if you want to see what is going to be your absolute fastest. And as you can see, there's ones that get quite up there in speed. So I'm going to go ahead and select the fastest one and then hit OK, and that is going to update the cache. Now that our cache is updated, let's go ahead and close this out and apply the update. So what that did was just updated the update manager. That way you get all the correct packages. And all these packages that you're going to be updating, these are all for security and the latest software versions that may be available. So you just go ahead and install update and if it needs other things to be installed, it'll actually tell you instead of just failing halfway through. Go ahead and hit OK and put in your password. And then it's just going to go ahead and do those updates for you. Alright, now that our update is done, it is telling us to go ahead and reboot, but there's still some more that we could do before we go ahead and reboot. So, if you are just trying to get online and want something that is not going to crash in the meantime, well, I noticed that Linux has better stability when it comes to everyday usage compared to Windows, and now that just about sums up the last of what we are going to be doing here with this welcome panel. Let's go ahead and close this, and now the scary monster that everybody is afraid of when it comes to Linux, the command prompt. This thing is not as scary as you might think. So it is actually very easy to use. I am going to make this a lot easier on myself and you as the viewer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and install OBS. So what I'm going to do is just type in the program name that I want, OBS, and look at that. You just go ahead and copy what it says here. If it finds the repository or application that you're looking for, go ahead and paste, enter, and then hit yes. You don't have to worry about all the rest of that stuff. That is just dependencies that it's going to be installing. And then go ahead and hit enter, and that will install it for you. The terminal is a very, very crucial tool, and it is actually not as hard as you might think. I'm going to go into a lot more detail on the terminal in videos to come, but for right now, let's go ahead and launch OBS. And it is as simple as just typing OBS. And now we have OBS front-ended to our terminal. I'm going to go ahead and set this up now, but there was some things that I noticed before that I have to set up first. Before I can get OBS to fully work, I'm going to do my audio. I'm going to open my sound settings, and if you are using the Corsair Void Pro USB gaming headphones like I am, the default is going to be this headphones Corsair Void Pro USB gaming headset, but you want this right here, this digital output S/PDIF. This is going to make it so that you can also use your microphone. So this option right here will make it so that you can use your microphone that is also included on your headphones. Now, this is not absolutely required. If you are just using speakers, you could just do your speaker layout. Let's see, we got line out here, and we also have digital output, but also with S/PDIF. But right now we are going to be using my headphones as an example, and also to use them for a microphone, you want to also do this S/PDIF. That is going to let you utilize that microphone. Alright, we can go ahead and close that out. Settings apply as soon as you touch them. So now, let's go ahead and start recording. Alright, we are now recording on OBS on Linux. I will show you how to set this up more in a different video, going more into depth. I probably don't sound the best right now, but it'll be enough to get us through the rest of the video. Okay, so now that we are on our desktop, let's go ahead and change things up a little bit. First thing we probably want to do is get a different background on here. So what I like to do is I never really liked any default background from any operating system, regardless of what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and go on Firefox here. And this is already up to date because that's what we did. We ran updates, and now this is all up to date. We have Firefox open now. I want to do something that looks nice and clean. I want to do minimal abstract 8K landscape. You just search for that, it'll come up with Google. Let's see what it brings us. Just for the sake of this video, let's go ahead and go with this one right here. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my pictures, that way it's just not clogging up my downloads folder. Alright, our picture is now downloaded. We can go ahead and close our tabs out and open up our file explorer. Go down into pictures, and you can double click on it and open it up just like you would in Windows. And now we are going to go ahead, right click, and set as wallpaper. It is that easy, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Now let's say you want to take it a step further. Let's say that just the background is not enough for you. Well, guess what? You could do a lot more with the icons and also your cursor. So you have the ability to change the theme of your system to anything you want. So let's say you don't like the look of the buttons, you can go ahead and change the buttons to something that you do like the look of. But I do like the stock look of these buttons here. Let's say you don't like your icons, you have a ton of different icons to choose from and in different colors. I prefer usually the minty dark aqua, but I'm going to show you a bunch of different icons that look way better in a second here. I usually change my pointer to a dark pointer, just because, and I always leave stock option here, minty dark aqua, for our panel. But that's not all. You can go ahead and you can actually download more. And no, you don't have to go through some sketchy websites like you would normally on Windows. You actually have an app store here. It is called Software Manager, and it is this button right here. This opens up your Software Manager and gives you a huge array of different applications. I think that this is actually more useful than the Windows Store, but it doesn't have quite as much. So as you can see, we have a whole bunch of stuff right here, including Wine if you want to run Windows applications. I will go more into detail on that in a different video. We also have Steam. I will get into gaming in a different video because that is a whole different beast when it comes to gaming on Linux. So what we want to do right now is we're just trying to change our theme. So let's go ahead and do icons. Go ahead and search icons. You usually could find a whole bunch of different stuff, and it'll show you an image of what those icons will look like. So it's not very visible right here because it's a low resolution image, but they look okay, but that's not the one that I want. The one that I want is actually called Papyrus, and this is by far my favorite, and that is absolutely subjective. It is not necessary to go with this exact one that I am downloading here. There are a bunch of different themes, and now the next one that I'm going to change is my cursor, because sure, the dark cursor might be nice, but it's not quite to my liking. There's one that I really like though, and that is called the Breeze cursor. I believe that this is the cleanest looking cursor, and I actually installed this one on Windows, just because I liked it so much on Linux. And after these are done downloading, so once these are all set, I'm going to go ahead and apply those. Alright, so now those are all set, those are all done downloading. Let's go ahead and close this out, and we're going to go back to our themes. So now we go to our icons, and I'm going to change it to the Papyrus right here, the default Papyrus, and as you can see, it changed them all already. It applies it instantly, and there's no reboot required. The next one is going to be the cursor. It doesn't show you a preview for these specific ones, but there are a whole bunch of different ones that do show you. Go ahead and close that, and as you see here, I now have a different cursor. Now this is how I like my desktop to look. This is the default that I like to go for. Now, let's say you want to go into your start menu, but you really don't like that start menu icon. Let's go ahead and configure this, and you can actually change your icon here by clicking on this right here. And the one that I like is this one that represents the mountains. I'm a little bit drawn to mountains, if you can tell. Go ahead and select that, and now it applied a little mountain thing. Alright, looks like we are set with that. Now, another thing that you might have noticed is the weird spacing when it comes to these icons up here on the desktop. You could change that as well. Go ahead, right click on the desktop and customize. Desktop icons are they're not currently enabled for this monitor. That's weird. Okay. I'm not sure why I did that, but that's extremely strange. I set this as my primary. Okay, so here are your sliders, and in real time, as you're adjusting these, if it's going to cooperate here. Now, mind you, I am running on a USB drive. It has been fairly quick so far. Okay. Let's go ahead and try that again. Go to Customize, and now we can change our icon spacing. I usually like to set it to this right here, because that gives me a nice compact grid. Let's go ahead and close that out. It might take a while just because I'm on a USB drive, but I've noticed that on regular hard drives, it does not take so long. Now let's say you want to do some file management. You have your file manager here. This is the end-all be-all when it comes to different file explorers. Or, in my opinion, this is significantly better than Windows at least. But a cool thing that you can do here is you can open tabs for your different places that you want to go for them. That way you don't have to have 4 different windows open just because you want to copy files here. That is a very, very nice feature to have, especially on Linux Mint here. And even though that this is a pre-made Linux distribution, it's still Linux. You have full range over anything that you want to do. So let's say that I'm a more advanced user and I want to go ahead and see what my IP is and set it to static. Now, I don't know how to personally set my IP to static, but if we go to IP A for all, it'll show you all of your different IP information and your different interfaces. So what we have here, this is our loopback. This is usually your internal IP address, so 127.0.0.1 for localhost. Then it shows you your physical interface, so that is going to be my ENP9S0 here. That's my primary interface. Now this one here, I'm not sure exactly what this one is or what it's referring to, but that might be my Wi-Fi card. Once we go more in depth on the terminal itself, I'll go more into depth on some useful commands and stuff like that. But let's say that you're just an average user and you want to go to Facebook. Let's go ahead, open up Firefox. You can go to facebook.com and, just put in your information and bam, you're logged into Facebook. I personally do not use Facebook anymore. I haven't in about 10 years just because of privacy and their tracking stuff. That's just me. But you get to be able to do whatever you want normally like you would on Windows. So let's go to I would believe a more widely used website, YouTube. As you can see, it looks just like it would normally be on Windows. Absolutely nothing different. This looks just like it would on Windows. And if this is all you're going to be doing, you are all set. You don't have to do anything more. But let's say that you want to, let's say you're making YouTube videos. Let's go ahead and close this out. And we want to have something that's as powerful as Photoshop, but gives you the ability to pick and choose what features you have. So we are going to go ahead and, oh, look at that. It's right there at the very beginning. Go ahead and select GIMP and install. And that's it. It's that simple. You just go ahead and find what applications that you want to use. And if you're not sure what software to download on Linux, you can find a whole bunch of different analogous softwares that are open source and free, mind you, just by Googling. So let's say that I want to use something that's like Premiere Pro. Personally, I don't know anything off the top of my head that's similar to Premiere Pro on Linux. So I'm just going to go ahead and Google Premiere Pro alternatives for Linux. Alright, so let's see what we got here. And usually you just want to go on down these lists and see what looks best to you. So let's go ahead, click on this first one here. There's Filmora. That one's pretty decent. Pitivi, I'm not sure if I even got that correctly. I've never used that before. Shotcut I've heard of. There's a whole bunch of different here. So the one that I do have at least a little bit of experience with here when it comes to video stuff is this one right here. It is going to be Filmora Pro. I've at least dealt with it a tiny bit. Not much, but a tiny bit. So there's that. Okay, so we now have GIMP installed. Now we want to go ahead and make our thumbnail. Sure, it might not look the best right now, but let's say that I really don't like how it looks here. You can go ahead and Google Photoshop theme Linux. And there is actually something called PhotoGIMP. And if you follow the instructions on this right here, I'm not going to do that in this video because that's going to take way too long. You can make it look almost identical to Photoshop. And I've used Photoshop plenty in the past. GIMP is absolutely amazing. It is very powerful. I even use it on Windows. Now let's say that you want to do a little bit of easy gaming. You just want to fire up some Minecraft. You can just go ahead and install it right from this software manager. Now it is going to install an older version of the launcher, but it is the launcher nonetheless, and you can still launch Minecraft from it. Now let's say you want to get into some more serious work. You do 3D rendering and stuff like that. You have Blender, which is openly available. It's very powerful. I haven't used it, but I have seen many good works made with Blender. And let's say that you're an audio person. You want to go ahead and make some audio cuts. Audacity has been around forever. If you have done anything with audio, you have used Audacity at least once. Sure, it might not be the best, but I have no idea. I don't do that kind of thing. Now, there is, well, when it comes to Linux, there is unlimited possibility. And if you ever have a question, let's say that you're having a little bit of weirdness going on, and Linux Mint no home screen after login. Just something random. Black screen after login, look at that. And I'm pretty sure that they have also fixed this issue. And they will walk you through the steps right up until it's finished. It is a very large community, and they will help you. And another thing that you may be very grateful for when it comes to the stability of the OS, I have never seen a hard crash on Linux, like with a blue screen. Actually, just before this video, I started trying to, I tried booting up a virtual machine for Linux, just on Windows 10. I was using VirtualBox. It had some sort of memory overflow type thing going on, and it just completely crashed, and it blue screens. Whatever I was doing in the middle of that, it just cut right out, and that was it. That was the end of the day. With Linux, any distribution of Linux rather, you probably won't see that unless there is a major issue with your hardware. So the reason why Linux is so great, if there is an issue like that, it is open source, and usually within a day, stuff like that gets fixed, because that is a fatal error. Fatal errors are very quick to be fixed on Linux, and a whole other reason that's why you might want to switch to Linux in the first place. Well guys, that's gonna just about wrap it up for this video. If you have any more questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I will try my best to be able to answer any question that you might have. But if there's something that I cannot answer, there is always the community. And that is the great thing about Linux, is that it's very community driven, and the community will more than likely have already faced that issue that you're already having, and also found a way to fix it. Now, mind you, not everything is going to run on Linux, which doesn't make it the absolute best when it comes to your computing experience, but it is getting very close to being the best option for computing. I would say that it is above Windows in terms of functionality and flexibility. Linux is the do-it-all ecosystem, and not just Linux Mint, but you also have a bunch of different distributions. If you don't quite like what is going on with Linux Mint, there is Ubuntu, there is Fedora, there is Arch Linux, KDE, all excellent desktop environments to use Linux. And keep in mind, no matter what desktop environment you are using, there are chances are that you are going to be using something similar. Even if it's not exactly the same as this, it is going to be something similar to give you that same amount of flexibility. And with this guide, I hope that this helps you get more into Linux and helps you actually be able to make the transition from Windows or Mac OS to Linux. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. If you'd like to support the channel and to see more videos like this one, go ahead and subscribe. I will be doing plenty more with Linux stuff in the future, as well as just general stuff with computers or hardware, or just random things here and there. This is Arch, and I'll see you in the next video.